Hey, hey, hey. Thanks for joining me. Another episode, and today I'm going to talk about how I have a sister, a half sister, who has Treacher Collins Syndrome, just like me, and I know who she is. So, back in 2016, I was in a severe health decline. I was addicted to 15 daily prescription drugs, an alcoholic. In 2013, I had a DUI. So I was at a pivotal point in my life when I ran into advocacy in 2015. I started shaping up, but I was still kind of at a pivotal decline in 2016. And then 2017 came, and I really started getting my shit together, so to speak. But in 2016, I hired a private investigator to find my biological half sister that was adopted. How did I know I have a half sister? Well, I come from a highly dysfunctional family, and my mother was married to a man, had 5 children with him, had a one night stand with his brother, and had me. So I was an accident child, and five of my siblings are half my siblings, half my cousins. I know it's like some weird, crazy exchange, right? But the moral of the story is that I had a sister out there that's identical to me. Like, she would know what I've been through, surgeries and disability. And I was just so eager to find her. And how I learned about her was my biological father told me. He spoke loud and proud of his disability, Treacher Collins Syndrome, and he went around and spread his seed wherever he could, producing as many disabled children as he could. So he produced children all over the United States. I don't even know how many siblings I have here, and I know I have many in Vietnam. So the I had a sister here who died when she was age 1 from SIDS, and they believe for her having Treacher Collins that her airways they declined. So I had that sister, and then another one that was born exactly 6 months before I was born, and exactly 60 miles from where I was born. And my father, I don't have a close relationship with my father. I actually did not learn about my biological father until I was 12. I was heated and going off on my mother and my stepfather, which I thought he was my father at the time. And I said, I don't look nothing like either one of you. You're not my parent. You're not my father. And my mom's like, you're right. He is not your father. And she told me I had a father. His name, I was just blown away. Went to school, got on Yahoo, Googled his name, got like 90 phone numbers. The third one I called, my brother answered, and I ran away. And I learned why my mother was not around my biological father, why she kind of skipped, town and took me away. And even though she loved my grandparents, my grandmother had Treacher Collins. They treated my mother very well, but my biological father was a piece, abusive, addict, just not a good person. And today I'm not so sure if he's any different. But nevertheless, he has told me many stories, and one of them is, you have a sister and she has Treacher Collins. She's brunette, and I signed my rights away to her when she was very, very, not even 3 months, I think. So I hired a private investigator to find my sister, because what better way could I have a piece of me, someone to relate to, someone that has my disability. Isn't that crazy? I have all these other siblings on my mom and my dad's side and my stepfather's side, and I don't have relationships with any of them. And my family on all four sides is so dysfunctional. It's just unfathomable. But nevertheless, I wanted to find my sister. I hired a private investigator, and they came to the conclusion that my sister is named Allison. She's a model and an actress in New York, and she was born in California. Exactly 6 months before me, exactly 60 miles. And I just knew back in the 1980s, there were very, very few people in the world that had Treacher Collins Syndrome. Even today, there are not many of us. We can pretty much find each other on like Facebook and the online web. Just so enamored and amazed at the human being that could possibly be related to me and who she is. And it was so inspiring. And at that time, in 2015, I started major craniofacial advocacy. I got involved with craniofacial organizations, including Children's Craniofacial Association. I made all these Facebook groups, and I just started honoring beautiful people, such as myself, born with conditions, and just putting the spotlight on them. And she was one of the people that I added to the groups that I had made. I want to say after the fact that I had met her because I didn't know that she really existed. And so I reached out to her and I told her, look, I think you might be my sister. I think it would be worth a DNA test. She's like, at first, no way. I come from a very prestigious family. I have my great grandmother who was a famous supermodel. I have my great grandfather who was like some crazy inventor. I have my biological father who's also a famous actor in New York. There's no way we're related. And so I was like, okay, and she sent me pictures too. And I was like, okay, maybe this investigator was just off their rocks and have no idea what they're talking about, right? Nevertheless, I just made a friendship with her, and then she kind of came back and said, you know what? I have always wondered about the roots of my family, and actually, I've never met my biological father. He lives here in New York where I live, but every time I've tried meeting with him, he never shows up. I was like, wow. So I'm thinking in my head, her family adopted her from her mother, her adopted mother, I believe, was a midwife. And so she adopted her from where she was placed after my father signed his rights away. And so basically, she's being lied to because let's face it, my family is highly dysfunctional. I mean, I just told all of you that my mother had a one night stand with her husband's brother. And so the dynamic in that dysfunction, why would anyone want to associate themselves with that, right? So, anyways, she was starting to kind of hesitate, like, well, maybe it would be worth us getting a DNA test and just seeing. And we just started building a relationship, and I got a sense of ego from her. And I'm not trying to say anything bad. I'm just being honest in this podcast. In fact, I hope she's listening to it. But she just started kind of treating me like a little minion. And, maybe that's natural for an older sister because technically she's 6 months older than me. She's been on the runway as a model, as an actress in some films, and she's nearing her 40s. So I would say, with all the conversations that we had together, she did tell me New York is brutal. You have to step on people to get to where you want to be, to get accomplished. I didn't really like that. I felt like, well, that's not something I would do. And I just kind of took it with a grain of salt because that was just the perspective she was telling me. But then she was like, "Well, you're a really good writer. You can write about me." And, because she saw that I've had publications and I am a good writer. I was like, "Yeah, maybe." And, we kind of did this interview. I still have it recorded, and it was awkward. She looked super annoyed with me, like she didn't like me, and it just wasn't really a good feeling. And I just really think we bumped heads and we got into an argument. I can't even remember what it stemmed from, but I want to say it's because you're pushing me too much on this, DNA thing, and I'm not into it, and you're crazy, or whatever she said to me, and it just kind of ended there. Um, but during the good time when we were kind of bonding and we were, talking about the universe and spirituality and things that we could find common ground on, she was just in this negative mindset towards me and did not want to accept that we might be related. And another thing that I thought that was so interesting is that she has an older sister. Of course, they're not biologically related, but there's dysfunction and some damage that they can't seem to overcome. And I have an older sister, but we are half sisters. We have the same mother with similar dysfunction. So, anyways, we bonded and then we clashed hard. At that time, I was getting my life together, getting my career in route, becoming a disabled craniofacial advocate, and really unearthing things inside of me that I was frankly passionate about. And so I decided to obviously shut the door on that. And, obviously she doesn't want to be related to me. She thinks I'm trying to piggyback on her career, her modeling, her acting, and I was not doing anything of a sort. I had my own successes. I'm my own awesome person. Like, hello. By the way, I have side by side pictures of Allison and me and our biological father, if what I'm saying is actually true. And we have the same foreheads. We even have like the same walk because I've seen her walk in some of her films. My husband's the one that called that out. So many similarities. And you know what? She looks more like my grandmother than I do because she unfortunately was born with a more severe form of Treacher Collins. She's had about 100 surgeries. I've only had 16. So I was very lucky in terms of not being born as severe. But just because you're born with a severe disability doesn't mean you can't inspire and create your successes. So, nevertheless, we ended, severed our ties, and it sucked. I was hoping for a sister, but my husband and I, we just started going different directions. We started attending celebrity events and meeting amazing people. We built our businesses and we met a group of people called Kiss the Monkeys at these events that we were going to from City Summit City Gala. And we started, co creating with them in the background. They became our best friends. Raquel and Alex. And so while we started doing things with these celebrity charity events, they did a lot of modeling red carpet runway shows. And so my husband came up with the idea, hey, maybe Cynthia could get on the runway and represent people with disabilities and inspire. I never intended to become a model, nor do I claim to be a model. I've only done modeling to inspire other people that they can do whatever they want to do, regardless of your disability. So I've done pretty good handful of shows. I've had celebrity makeup artists work on my face before the shows, and I've worn some really awesome fashion. And going on the runway, I didn't want to just do it by myself. I wanted to recruit other models with disabilities to join the runway with me. And I have successfully done that. I've invited Candy Zavla. She has Treacher Collins Syndrome. She did a runway show with me. I've invited a young lady with Down syndrome, Abigail Adams, a deaf model, a blind model, all on the runway with me to share the opportunity. Because it's not about me. I'm here to inspire and share. And so, in the particular instance of one of these shows where we were, recruiting other models with disabilities and I was responsible for that, I thought, well, maybe I'll invite Allison to join the runway with me and these other disabled models. And this particular show was in New York at the famous toy store FAO Schwartz. If you've seen the movie with Tom Hanks in the movie Big, jumping on the piano, that's where this event was. I walked on that piano during the runway and I almost ate it. But anyways, I decided to extend an invite to Allison. And what was so crazy is when I presented the idea to the founders of Kiss the Monkeys, they had already known who she was. She had walked on their runways before me. Blew my mind. Is that not a sign from the divine or what? These people became our best friends. I hadn't even known she knew them. So I said, this is perfect. I'm going to reach out to her and let her know, hey, I'd love to have you join our runway show and maybe we can start over. No. Instead, Allison proceeds to contact Raquel and Alex and tell them that I'm a psycho. She would never work around me and just all these horrible things about me. And mind you, these are our best friends now. And she had completely turned them off. And I just was like, wow. And then I just remember when she said, you have to step on people to get where you need to go to be successful. And I remembered she said that to me. And it just, for me, so disrespectful. But obviously, I can't say what her character is. And she's obviously truly mad at me because maybe she knows deep down I am her sister and she doesn't want that to be true. But instead of sitting here and being in denial and trying to dim my light to make yours brighter, that's what happened. So that's the end of that. I have not been in contact with her since. My husband thinks it's a big missed opportunity that we're not able to find out, the truth, get a DNA test, and start building a relationship. But I'm like, why would I want to build a relationship with someone who has that kind of demeanor and hostility to try to bring me down in a way when I was trying to share the limelight with her? At the end of the day, there were so many synchronicities, so many alignments, and she had even been involved in some of the craniofacial organizations that I've been involved with, including the Children's Craniofacial Association, and she too was wronged by the likes of these same types of organizations. These organizations are non-profit and they are seeking faces like ours to raise money for profit so they can take their salaries, find a cash cow, get the sympathy card pulled, and make a ton of money. And as you notice, these craniofacial organizations, they don't really have much impact. And when I was when I was an advocate and I was essentially working for these organizations, putting my own hard work, time, and money into advocating for them, thousands of hours, and just to be gaslighted and controlled and told that the narrative is this. You can't say that you have a deformity. You need to say that you have a facial difference. And I'm like, you know what? I'm my own person, my own advocate, and I was born with a physical deformity. So that's just the end of it. Anyways, Alice and I could really find common ground on that, and she stepped away from that. I stepped away from that, but we haven't found our way to each other. So that's the story. And I don't have much more to add other than we did share common ground, and it coulda, shoulda, would have been something, maybe. And don't get it twisted. I've been happily married for 20 years, madly in love. This was simply the sister I never had that I was hoping for. It's unfortunate. I wanted to share this story. In no way, shape, or form do I harbor any negativity towards Allison, but I'm a realist, I'm honest, and I wanted to share the story. It's the truth. I have screenshots and proof of messages, and I have no problem sharing those. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm going to go ahead and end it here. And I look forward to joining all of you on my next podcast. And I hope your weekend is as wonderful as you are.